everybody. Well, it's quite extraordinary to have a lecture with such a big audience. I'm very happy that you all came here, and because it's quite a special night tonight. We started with Anarchy and the chair of Architectural Design and Engineering. We cooperated and we organized together this lecture series called Making Architecture. And within these lecture series, we thought it's very interesting to have always two different speakers, two different architects with a different approach towards the translation of designing architecture, the conceptual design of architecture and the way of making it. And we have made a quite nice collection of speakers. Tonight is the kickoff with Caro from Venne from Barcode Architects and Haiko Meijer from Onyx NL. Not Onyx International, but Onyx NL. On the 10th of March, we'll be having here welcoming Felix Klaus, formerly from Klaus & Kaan, and now from Klaus and Dick van Wageningen Architects, and David Jamotte, who is since the 1st of February professor within a chair of Architectural Design and Engineering. So it will be also his first real lecture as a professor here. Then on April 28th we'll have René van Zuuk from Van Zuuk Architects and Francine Hoeben. And May 26th, Nathalie de Vries and Damian Neutelings from Neutelings Riedijk Architects and Nathalie from MVRDV. And on June the 9th we'll have Marlies Romer and Thilo Herla from HHF Architects. So we are very happy that all these people are willing to come and to give lectures here. So we all invite you to be present at all the lectures. So when it's a big success, of course, we'll continue this initiative after this first day. Then I always do it the wrong way. So tonight we'll have the lecture by Caro van Venne, and just to shortly introduce what I said before, we want to have always two speakers with a different approach, and where the way of designing architecture is also beyond the concept of the design. So where really is making clear how the architect, that's what we ask them, how you design, conceiving of making it, how you realize it, how it's influencing your design, the way you build it, you construct it, the tactility, how the way architecture feels and how it smells. Caro is going to kick off. She is from Barcode Architects. It's nice because you'll have your education here at the TU Eindhoven, so it's a bit like coming home and being also the first, so it's a very nice coincidence. Caro worked for years at Herzog & de Meuron, after which she worked as an associate partner at Foster & Partners, and since 5 years now, she is very successfully heading the office of Barcode since 2010 with Dirk Peters. And they're really quite extraordinary because they are working on a wide range of projects, internationally oriented, and the first building they realized is immediately in Bordeaux, and not in Purmerend, but in Bordeaux, so that's very nice. After the lecture of Caro, we'll have a lecture, we'll have a short break, and then afterwards we'll have the lecture of Haiko Meijer from Onyx. And the work of Onyx is very entangled with the making. I was just having a discussion with Haiko about the way he designs. Well, this is Caro, you see her here, and this is a project of Haiko, where the work is deeply entangled with the making of, and it's not for nothing that he sent us this photo. So the fact that the architecture is really with the feet on the concrete and with the hands on the jigsaw, so that's really a part of the work. After the lectures, we'll have, if not everybody is collapsing because of tiredness, we'll have a discussion, and you're all welcome to ask questions then. So now, Caro van Venne. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Yeah, also I'm very impressed to see such a full lecture hall. It's great, and I have to say I'm also a little bit proud to see my name in that list of honorable Dutch architects. Thanks Julia for the introduction. I also made myself an introduction slide, which is now a bit unnecessary. But indeed, I was at Hesse Dummerow for a couple of years, worked from the beginning on this project in Miami Beach. Then I was a couple of years at Foster, where I also had the privilege to with one design really collaborate together with Norman, and that's also always good for your motivation to have to be influenced by these people. About our office, indeed we do projects from all scales. My partner is also educated in urban planning. Myself, I was educated here. I'm more like in this, let's say, in this making, in this craftsmanship, when we talked about in the beginning, by Juliette, and I think together we make now a team with 25 people already in Rotterdam, and I was complaining to Maarten during dinner that we don't have enough people from Eindhoven, so we're open for motivated and creative people. Rather than explaining like a whole portfolio from our office, I think for this lecture series it's better to go really deep into. I have two projects really explained, and I have, let's say, two wildcards if I'm not able to talk for 45 minutes and I need some extra slides. To begin with our project on the University of Utrecht, upper left corner, northwest corner, close to the highway. It's a project that we won by a European tender in as an integrated design team. So we subscribed together with ABT, the engineering firm, and then got selected. Then we had to design something against 5 other offices. Then everybody wondered who Barcode was out of Rotterdam, but effectively we won the competition. It's that building. It's the Ronald J. van der Graafschap, which is next to the TNO, and it's in the geoscience cluster at the University of Utrecht, and it is like we use the old structure, but we really take everything out. This was the current status of the building. I think the picture at the left corner, I have such a pointer. The left bottom corner describes it quite well. So it was like an office structure and then 2 big experimental halls, and these experimental halls, they had walls of 1.20 meter thick concrete, because they were doing experiments with radioactive, I'm sometimes a bit switching between English and the Dutch, radioactive testopstellingen. So it had like these 2 identities. Here we see the demolition. Of course, it was full of asbest, and they had to take all the asbest out. We see also the really defined structure, so every 80 centimeters there is a column. And at the left back, you see also the brick structure. And during this demolition, which was totally helpful for us, because what they did is they took like all the stuff out of the building and then they dumped it against the brick wall. And during the competition, it was said to us that we had to recycle the brick wall because it was in good condition and it was more durable, etc. But then the builders, they trashed like all the building brittle against the brick wall, and the wall cracked. So then we could also design like a new facade for this brick wall. So sometimes it's turning your way. These are two images from the competition design. So you see in the light blue are these two experimental halls, this one and this one, and around this is actually a line of offices and laboratories. And there you see also immediately the challenge of this building, because it's about 60 meters deep until you to this 1.20 meter wall here, and then it's 2 levels high. So we really have to be innovative with how do you create like daylight in the center of this building. And the task was like a new building for the Faculty of Geoscience. So in this upper experimental hall, they will do all kind of tests for earthquakes. And then this one, there is this box here. This is 26 meters long, and they do kind of experiments to simulate the tide of the sea. So it's a very Dutch thing. So what they do in here is they simulate the sea, how it's working, what the sand is doing, if the water is coming, etc., etc. And apparently, like in the world, they're very well known. So people from Japan and everywhere, America, they come in here to look and discuss with these professors about this experiments. And the fact is now, so they have like 5 different groups, and they like spread over the whole University of Utrecht. They all have like a lot of space, and they can do what they want. And now they have to collect themselves in this building. They never were together. They never were in one building together. Somehow they see the benefit, because of course you have cross ventilation of the different disciplines. But on the other hand, yeah, they now have so much more space. So it was a big discussion, and also talking with them is like how are you gonna fit like all these different disciplines in this one building. Whatever is said, it's also a cluster. So it's a cluster of geoscience. Our building is in the red, and somehow they also feel it a bit as a cluster. You have the cluster of medical science on the University of Utrecht, and then you also have this cluster of geoscience. So somewhere there has to be something like, I'm part of this, and I'm part of, so I look a bit like the neighbor, but I'm just a bit different. And that's also what we picked up in this design. So you see this strong horizontal bands. That's something that we said that we should pick up in order to be part of this geocluster. And this was the facade expression as we presented it for our competition design. So then still with the old brick facade and with the strong horizontal bands, we took away the upstand, so you had like full glass from floor to ceiling for the offices and the laboratories. And yeah, that's also a bit like referring to our background. So my partner, Dirk, and myself, we both were at Hetzel Dummeron. Afterwards, Dirk went to OME and myself then to Foster. But for us, the reference of having an office, how you work, and the way we want to work is still Hetzel Dummeron simply. And of course, they're also famous for the facade, and that's also what still triggers us in our conversations about how do we want the building to express itself in its context, in this sense, the University of Utrecht. And it's the Faculty of Geoscience, so at a certain moment we had all like this really beautiful pictures on the wall as inspiration about what the Faculty of Geoscience is working with and what it's about. And our idea was to somehow represent this identity of geoscience in the facade. And especially also because it's what I said earlier, like people from Japan and America, and everybody's coming here, and then to really express within this huge amount of buildings you have on such a university area, where you as a group of researchers stand for was first important. So we took one of these pictures and did kind of abstraction on it, and I said we wanted to show it in the facade. And the technique that we wanted to apply is you have like a silk screen, and so you put like a foil silk screen on a concrete panel, and then through the silk screen, where there are like small holes in the silk screen, you put a paste. And this paste in Dutch is what you call like betonvertrager. So directly translated, a concrete slower. And so you put it on the concrete when it's not really dry yet, and then depending on the effect that you want, so there's kind of a paste and on the concrete, depending on the effect that you want, you start like brushing the paste off again. And on that spot where there was the paste, it eats, let's say, the top surface out of the concrete. So partly then your concrete is still the smooth concrete as we know it, and partly the concrete is, this kind of 60s concrete where you see the little stones. And in that way, you get like the difference in expression from the top layer of your concrete. And then you can make images like you see here on the right hand side. So I explained this when presenting the competition for the Faculty of Geoscience, and especially also because it's actually a procedure which has to do with a natural material as concrete and kind of biting out of the concrete. I mean, they immediately had an attachment to it, and they felt like, that's a procedure which is about like natural materials. How do you treat natural materials, and what's at the end the outcome of it? So. They totally were convinced about this concept, and also indeed about expressing where they stand for to the outside. So this was one of the images we had then at our competition design. But then we went into the VO stage, and we came to the conclusion that for every panel, and we have 90 panels on this building, you have to buy like every time a new membrane. So we had to buy like 90 membranes, and the cost of the membrane was really high. So there's not a repetition in it. So basically, it was no way that we could afford it. I mean, it's not a museum or whatsoever. It's like it's a public entity. It's a university. So basically, then our concept was gone. And well, there was one thing where we were sure about. That we said like, there's horizontal bands, the way that you still see the experimental holes in brick, that we want to remain. Then we start searching again and thought like, if you work with a mold, so you have like a rubber mold that you pour the concrete in, then you have a recycling in the mold. So let's say then you make like 3 molds, and then we can produce 90 panels. So I mean, that's the whole trick with the building process, right? It's like not, in some way it's like art, but you have to find a kind of a repetition to make it payable. So we then start to think about the layers of the earth and this kind of molding process. What we do then in our office, we constantly, if we have such an idea, we constantly try to switch between, on one hand, making renders, like you see here, and on the other hand also making models. To go back to this, what we basically saw here, and then my meeting is all the time in Utrecht, and I see this building from Wilhares, if you all know it, this library, and I thought then we do the same, only that we do make a positive, instead he makes a negative, and I was like, no, that's not gonna work. Then thinking about universities, I was of course studied here in Eindhoven, and I was like, okay, let's switch to something more modern. So we start looking at printing on glass, of course, like now your faculty wants my faculty, and what you could do there, and also structures in the glass. We did like different site visits here under the building of Wilhares, which we thought first was nice. But the problem with glass is that it's a very vivid material as long as there's light on. And in the Netherlands, like half of the days it's overclouded, and then the glass buildings look dull. And in our case, there wouldn't be light from the back because we have in the opposite, it's glass from floor to ceiling, and this imprint glass is basically a black box. So there wouldn't be something sparkling or whatever behind. So all the time when we tried things with this glass, we found out that it's absolutely actually a dull material, and also if you render it, I mean, nothing is sparkling. And then we start to think about layering the glass, but the problem is also, for your reference, such a panel is more than 3 meters long and it's 1 meter high, and the top ones are 2 meter 40 high. So it's 3 meter by 2 meter 40, and we went to these glass factories and they basically said like, yeah, well, if you want to do it a bit economically, you have to do like panels from 30 by 30. So it wasn't matching at all with the competition image that we sent. And also totally not with our ideas. So at a certain moment we were something like, okay, let's clean this whole wall again and let's go back to the start, and we want to express the identity of the Faculty of Geoscience. And then we had like these images on the wall, and especially the left upper one, we told about the delta. And actually the delta, what you see there is like the water is carving out of the sand. And then it came back to us like, yeah, we shouldn't think about something positive on top of a panel, but we should think about carving, because then it's like what happens actually in this geoscience things. And that's what we, in the beginning when I was talking about this big thing of 26 meter long, which was simulating the tide in the Netherlands of the sea. I mean, what you see there is that indeed the water is carving out of the sand. So we stopped with making these renderings and we went to 1 to 20 mock-ups, where we basically made just like a process of pouring concrete. So we made the contramal ourselves, and then we started like pouring like concrete panels. And here you see a bit like what we tried with relief, and very dense reliefs and less dense reliefs. And from this 1 to 20s we went to 1 to 10, so this is on the top right corner. You see things where we tried with milling out of MDF panel. And yeah, with the top one you see like we milled like several layers, so it really became a bit bumps. And then we milled with one layer, and at the same time we did like an extensive research to concrete factories to also ask about like the different colors of concrete. And we wanted to symbolize somehow like the color of the earth, so we were looking into this more reddish earth colors. And then we came also back to this idea of repetition, but the last thing that you want is that if you try to simulate a delta, that you see that it's one panel of the delta and the next panel of the delta and the next one. So we try to come up with a pattern, you know, the simple trick that you can do A, B, C, D, and then these match again. So then you can also turn it around and it looks if it's running through. So you can do A, B, B, sorry, pattern 1, pattern 2, pattern 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 3, etc. And then it looks if the delta is running through. So there you see also in our office where we try like how on a 1-to-1 scale such a panel of like 3 meters by 1 meter will look like in the two different versions that I showed you earlier in this 1 to 20. And yeah, then this actually you should see a little bit upside down, but then we were thinking like, yeah, then you have this concrete and you start to carve out of the concrete, but that still doesn't look really like a delta. So we have to put something in it to make it look like a delta. And somehow I had a conversation with an engineer at AKT, and I was explaining like, yeah, that we have this concrete panel and it's actually a bit dull, but yeah, we want to pour something in it. Can you pour like glass in it or resin in it? Or I was discussing all kind of materials. And then he came up with the fact that a lot of concrete bridges in the Netherlands these days are reinforced by RVS plates. Because we have so many traffic jams on these bridges that these bridges, they start to bend through. So Rijkswaterstaat had to come up with a kind of an idea to strengthen the bridges, and they do that by putting like RVS strips on these concrete bridges. And then I thought like, yeah, but RVS, that would be beautiful, because that's like a mirror and that will shine and that will symbolize the water. And so the trick is then what we had is what you see at the bottom. So you have the box where you pour the concrete in, and then on that box there is a kind of a positive mold again, and then actually there is a layer of bauxite, and bauxite is a kind of material that pulls on the RVS effectively, and then you put a strip of RVS on it, then you pour the concrete on, then you wait, and then you lift the panel up, and then you have a panel with concrete, with the RVS strip in it, which is this. So here you see that we try this process. So on the top, I think it's 6 millimeters deepened. Here on the bottom, the RVS is like 3 millimeters, like in the concrete panel. And what we also tried is, like the first time when we did it, they also didn't instruct us really well, but we didn't give like a slight chamfer to the edges, so then we couldn't lift the concrete out. So these, so that's all kind of like trial and error also for these concrete factories, because of course they never did this, like that this edge has to chamfer a bit, because if you go back here, then you have to imagine, so the sketch, you see the RVS, but somehow you need then to pull the concrete off, and you have to make sure that the whole thing is not, let's say, because it shrinks a little bit because the water goes out, that it's not clamped around the NDF. And then all of a sudden, so we do like all this kind of craftsman things, and we work together with the concrete factory, and then all of a sudden we switch again to making renderings, because yeah, that's like then the only way to get like the perception of how it effectively will look also on a larger scale of the building. Now this is a little bit of a zoom in, but it tells you how the panel is then presenting itself in whole ensemble. Was a lot about like the aesthetics of the facade. Also shortly, I shortly want to explain also a little bit about the technique of the facade. So already a couple of times mentioned, so glass is going really from floor to ceiling. That was, let's say, for us a given, especially by such a deep building. You want to make really the glass from floor to ceiling in order to get the light as deep as possible into the building. And we wanted to apply a passive heating system, so it's a climate facade, it's a double system. Meaning there's a cavity at the bottom, which in the summer is open, so the whole thing works as a chimney, and the air is pulled out here at the top. Then there is light overpressure in these rooms at the inside, so the air is pressed out of the facade and is ventilated to the top. And to your desire, you can then open a window there to the climate facade. Also acoustically, because it's close to the highway, so besides like it's kind of a durable option in an energetic way, from an acoustic point of view, you would never be able to just open the windows here. So you always had to look at kind of this double system. Then in a winter situation, you would close it at the bottom. You still have the same principle of the air, which is pushed through the facade and out to the top. So we had to deal with an existing structure. So these are the columns that you saw. Then to the column there is like a steel console attached, which is this orange element. On this orange element, the concrete panels are hanging. The concrete panels are 12 centimeters thick, and the dimensions which I expressed earlier. Then the single glazed element of the climate facade is standing on this concrete panel, and then this double facade of the double glazing element is connected with a bracket to the floor slab. Then we have sun shading elements in the climate facade, and of course it was our desire to get everything as flush as possible on one line. Then here you see the box. So here you have like a vent, so the air goes through, and then through this box, which is kind of a klepje in, which pushes the air out in the chimney. This is then the expression from the inside. So here you see the cables of the sunscreen, and then the double glazed facade and a grid of 80 by 80 centimeters on the inside, and then the single glazed facade and a grid of 1 meter 60 on the outside. This is the vent with a grill. It's the same grill as applied here, and the electricity and etc. which runs through here, which are floor pots. Another challenge was also to get kind of an agreement with the engineers about like how far the facade would be above the ground, because of course the whole system only works if this works as a chimney in the summer, and if this is open. So this dimension, which we started with 35 centimeters, so that's somewhere here, where we're able to push to 18 centimeters, because of course it's a very critical thing. It's like how the air can go through, because you see here all the blockage that we have by the consoles. This is about 18 centimeters cavity in between, and now also 80 centimeters of open, 18. And the challenge was like also how to design this in order that the air indeed has this fluid entry, as you can see. So in order also for ourselves to get a bit of a sense of scale, etc. on this, this was like the first mock-up that we had, and then we really felt like, yeah, this looks if there's water or something, and you have to lift the pipes from the building up, and then we were trying, and here you see also that we stitched the piece to it in order to, in a proportional way, find like the right dimensions for this facade. The next thing was, I mean, due to this building, guys, that we also had to really think about like the facade expression of this brick facade. And the idea was that everything is like perfectly lining through, and these horizontal bands are also expressed in this brick facade, and also the windows, as they are here 3 meter high, in this brick facade are also 3 meter high. And since this has a certain relief, we also wanted to apply in this zone a certain relief. So here you see a bit our references. So we wanted to present like these windows, which face actually on the north to the building, really to the green, as kind of a picture frames which reflect the nature in it. And then this kind of bands and this carving out that we have in the concrete panels, we wanted to apply by using a kind of a relief in the bricks. Well, here you see then the whole test, if we want to go with what kind of colors, and at the end a kind of a test piece about the relief, if you want to use like a continuing relief or kind of more jumping types. And again, you see here the swap as we try to apply it, that we go from like looking at really real materials, real colors, talking with these builder guys, to then try to render it in our office in detail, how we want the junction, and also how we want to, as the climate facade is also kind of totally flush. Also here have the glass totally flush without any framing, joining with this brick facade. And this is kind of the last studies that you also see building further on this mock-up that we also had. It's like, what is then the junction and the jump between the climate facade and the brick facade? And is it a U-channel which runs all the way to the bottom, or is it a U-channel which basically falls itself under this this climate facade? And also definitely with the experience that we have as architects, I mean, you can't refer to like, yeah, we did it there 10 times like that and it worked out. So for us it's really like, okay, we have to test and test again and judge, and also look at different situations in order to be convinced about what we put on paper at the end. Yeah, so here you see the choice at the end, the U channel in between. This is then a brick facade. Well, this is the concrete wall, and actually this is an insulation panel, and this brick facade, they are just concrete strips in the shape of bricks, which then are directly glued to this stiff insulation panel. But yeah, these are kind of then the sketches that go in the evening to the engineers to ask a bit what is possible. And this is then a view from this north corner where I was referring to with how it reflects like the green which happens here, and then there is the university, the U channel. You see also the alignment through of like here the inlet and this line through to the big brick facade. The alignment of the 3-meter high windows, and that everything is really detailed, super flush in the box. That project is, I spent the whole weekend reading the spec, or in English the specifications. There was a first tender for a builder. At the end there was only one builder which made, let's say, made a subscription, so they put it again in the market. The guess is that in April they will choose a builder, and then after the summer break they will start constructing it. Second project, which I should do a bit faster, is a tower, actually a tower in our backyard. It's really 200 meters away from my office. So this is my, when I'm in the office, my view from my desk is basically this tower and the lacking gap next to it. It concerns these two buildings. This project is now in the technical design stage, and I want to explain a little bit about this one. This one is now in a schematic design stage, and I leave that up for the next lecture. For those of you who don't know Rotterdam, so what I just said, our office is here. This is the Maas, these are the boompjes, this is the market hall, and this is the Wijnhaven 69 and 65. And now I'm going to talk about 69. So it's really a stone throw away from, let's say, all the highlights. And this was also one of the images that we presented to the city, where we said like we have actually quite a critical, let's say, puzzelstukje, or in between the development of the market hall and the outer haven, and this is the museum quarter. Rotterdam is investing a lot of money at the moment and to make it a more pedestrian city, and in order to connect this with that, it's very important what all happens along this strip, and of course in particular what we're going to do with the Clint expression of such a building. And especially because we have the ability to create this ensemble with these two towers. Quite in the beginning we had like all kind of different volume studies, and what we basically said is like rather than making the plinth, which is as I said a couple of times, is very important in this development, but rather than making a plinth and a tower at top, we wanted to make one sculptural gesture. And this is the sculptural gesture which we created, and I'm going to explain a little bit more in depth about, but it's basically, the idea was there's a building regulation which says that you have to set the towers 10 meters back from the looilijn, so from the edge of your building plot, from the point of 25 meters. So this point is 25 meters high, and from that point on the tower is 10 meters back. So the tower folds gradually from this 10 meter stepping back point to zero, and then to the plane below. And of course we were already hoping in the beginning of the design stage that our investor would also invest like in a neighboring building, and at a certain moment we know that he would do, and we took kind of this, I mean, let's also have some fun job, where we say like, we bend it slightly away from the neighbor in order to create the desired privacy that you want for luxurious living in the center of Rotterdam. I'm gonna explain a couple of, let's say, what for us were important design steps, and how we, and sometimes it was a matter of a couple of weeks, and sometimes it was really a matter of a couple of months that we took our investor through and convinced him that we really believed that this was the right thing to do. And the first trigger was really that the plinth would be commercial, everybody was sure about, but in our neighboring building, and we will see it later in the picture, then they made like 2 levels of parking above this commercial, and to me it's like so irritating. It's like every time when I bike home, then I look into this parking garage and I see this long TL lies and this kind of anonymousness above this commercial plinth, and while it's like a south-facing facade on the water. And so the first thing we said is like, that's not what we're gonna do. We're gonna make all the waterfront housing. We push the parking in the back, and yeah, as a result, indeed, we have to do it over 3 levels, which of course is more costly. But at the end, it will pay itself back, because this housing is like so much more valuable. And of course, as a project, it's much more. It has more like generosity and status on the water. The grey are the storage boxes. So here you see it's commercial all the way through, then 3 levels of parking and a level of storage boxes behind the dwellings in the front. So this is the neighboring building with this parking where I was talking about, and here you see that we. This is this commercial level. Then we have a level of studios, which don't need like outdoor space. And therefore we couldn't omit here the balconies and optically stretch this plinth also a bit higher up to give it the status that you expect from a project like this. And then from then on the dwellings go up until the 23rd floor. It's an impression of this plinth, the black zone for the signage, indeed here with this with the studios, which I think is like a huge improvement to this open cavities that they once approved by Wellstad by the neighbors. The other thing was like, besides like bending away from the neighbor, we also said like in our facade expression we should seek for a certain amount of privacy. So the facades on these are then the east and the west side, they are more closed, and the facades to the north and the south, like facing the Maas and facing the city, they are more open and transparent. Which also is kind of inherent on the building system, but because at the end it's what we call in the Netherlands a tunnel system. So it's like they are effectively 4 tunnels placed next to each other. So what is grey here are also the load-bearing walls in the project. So we looked at a couple of references of this more enclosed facades, because since it's a load-bearing walls, it's of course also a limited amount of perforations you can do with it before the whole thing collapses. And this is the grid system which we at the end designed with 2 like big open windows at the side and the smaller windows in the center, and then it's kind of presented as kind of a stacking system on top of each other. Yeah, and then these things are very critical. It's like how much, let's say, need you have in a diagonal between this window and that window for the force in order to go down and bring it all the way to the bottom. Then there comes, of course, also this process again about what is the reference, what kind of material is it? So we were looking at ceramic, at concrete, at ethanite, at stone, and also that comes in the process when you have rendering and thinking like how it will look. On the left corner, you see if you start to use like a natural stone, you have to start panelizing it. Or you want to have more like the concrete, then it can again be one panel with patterns on it or without patterns on it. This is the system where we at the end choose for, like a dark sanded concrete with a light blue touch in it, which is like a strong contrast with the more transparent and white south and north facade. And the black window frames in And what we found important is that this robustness or this like heaviness which the building has on the side, that also is still expressed in the front. So for your reference, this is about 1 meter 10 wide, so it's a 1 meter 10 wide band that you also see in the south and the north facade, and is strongly identifying the silhouette of the building. Yeah, and I think here you see it quite well. So you see the 1 meter 10 line, and you see indeed what I first explained, that here we have to bridge that 10 meter setback all the way to the front. What you here also see is that what you don't see from the side facade is actually that this facade is going down to the bottom. So it's on the top, it's 21 meter, and at the end is 21 meter. That funnels here into a 7 meter concrete panel, which brings all the force from the tower through the parking garage to the foundations. If you talk with a broker in Rotterdam about housing, they all refer back to the timber house because it's such a success, because it has such large outdoor spaces. So for us, and especially of course for our investor, that was one of the first design principles to hook on, to make this really large balconies. And the problem with these large balconies are that for your dwelling it's great, but if your upper neighbor has also these large balconies, then it's kind of that you have this head in front of you and you can't look down, and you have the shadow from your neighbor on top of you. So we immediately said we should create this kind of double orientation. So here you have the large balconies, and here you have the large open windows. So these windows are 2 meter 10 wide, and it's a very nice system actually. They slide, there's a little motor here, and then the panels slide down. So you don't need like a full protection, because the lower window is stiff and stays in place, and then the upper window slides in front of the lower window. And in order to avoid this idea of like my neighbor is giving me shadow, we created this kind of meandering balconies that jump over each other, so that at least at certain zones in your balcony you have kind of a double height space above you. We left like a small zone of balcony, like a glazing clean distance balcony in front of you. So this is 60 centimeters and this is then 2 meter 20. This is then the expression that you get, and especially here in the middle you can really see how these balconies are jumping every level, and then also you create like different apartments on the even and uneven floors. For your reference, these balconies are designed then as white concrete balconies with a glazed balustrade top. Then the problem comes like how to keep like a 2 meter 20 balcony up in the air. So to go back to the building principles, what I said, it's like 4 tunnels placed next to each other. So this is a tunnel of 7 meter 85, 615, 615 and 785. And then the red are the load bearing walls, and the green are the stabilization walls. So actually what is stabilizing the whole structure is what you see here. It's a kind of an H, and here is an H. And funny enough, it was better to don't use the core, because this is in the center, but if the wings of the building are stable, it's kind of stabilized on itself to the bottom. And then what I said earlier, you have to imagine that this is 21 meter, and that narrows itself then down to a kind of a 7 meter zone, which goes to the foundations. But alright, the problem was to hang here a balcony on a floor which is already, for concrete, a 785 span is already quite to the extent, especially for the thickness of the floor slabs which we had, which are 260 mil. And we had this principle that at the end, so this hook is like poured in a concrete slab, and then later you come with your balcony. So this is a balcony, this is the EPS element which is put like in the concrete, so later you get like a thin concrete skin over this. So in effect this balcony is quite light because of this EPS element in it, and then this one slots over these elements. But these elements are in the floor, and the problem was a bit like when we put that element here in the floor, yeah, in the first calculation, the whole thing just collapses because the momentum on this element just becomes too high because of the big cantilever. So we then really have to like start the shift with our balconies again because the steel elements had to be as close as possible on the load-bearing wall, and it couldn't be like in the middle of the floor. To shortly also tell a little bit about the program. So what I said earlier, these are studios. Then here there are about 90 square meters apartments. Then these are very special, very generous apartments with inclined floors and ceilings. And then from here, level 9 up, it's basically 5 apartments, 4, 3, and 2 apartments on the floor. So here, once again, you see this condition of this balcony, which feels really a bit protective also if you're standing on the 20th floor in windy Rotterdam. And then here the window, where you really can put let's say your feet on the line of the glass and look out over the river and the rest of Rotterdam. And then on the 5th level, so that's the first level of the incline bit, we created a bit this special floor with also kind of communal services in it, and an opening towards also the terrace of 65, which is going to come there. So then like the two developments really can work together with like a shared roof terrace and all the amenities next to it. So this is this. So here we're now standing on the future development of 65, and we look back into this inclined bit with the patio of 69, and then here you would go to a small fitness area. So here you see this, where we just talk about, and then if the development comes up here, then they have a shared roof terrace. Also this project is now in a technical development stage, and we will start constructing it about at the same time as the laboratory building, so the 3rd quarter of this year. And there's just one project which I want to explain you in 2 minutes. Because I think it's nice also, it's clear that this gives a bit of an insight in how we design and how we work and how we make a project from, let's say, like a design stage to a building stage, and which kind of, let's say, all techniques and materials we apply in order to get like an understanding of how will it effectively look like if it's real. And but moreover, for us, from our office, it's very important that each building is unique in itself, and that you, at the end, when you go somewhere, that you know, like it had like a certain distinct quality, and you know that building was in Eindhoven, and it's not like one station area where Amersfoort looks the same as Almere, looks the same as Heerlen or whatever, and everything is just the same stack up. And so therefore I want to very shortly show you one competition, because I think like the way of looking and giving like a distinct twist to the design is really something that, like, also in this stage where you let's say design projects which are luckily not have to be built yet, but give like a kind of a distinct feel to your work. It's a bit. It's the old area where once the government of Germany was seated, and then they moved to Berlin, and then the UN took place in this area. And they had the competition in various stages. So first you had to give like a volume, then 500 people did that, then 100 were selected, then you had to give like a volume and a sketch, and then 20 were selected, and then the 20 had to give like a fully integrated design, and then 3 officers were selected, and then you had to talk like to the building, let's say the German building government body, and you had to explain how you were going to build it and which team you had, etc. And then they choose one, and you were second. And yeah, it's still a bit shit. and it was mainly because why is it so shit? Because I'm still convinced that we had the nicest design, but like our opponent, they put it here, actually on the river, and of course it's but the side plot was going here, and we thought like, yeah, if you do something in Germany, you not go over your side plot. And he did, and he won, and our design was nicer. And why was our design nicer? Because, I mean, this was clever. We had like the offices, we had the park, it like had the height difference, and the foyer connected in a really nice and transparent way. The park, and you saw the core going through, and it looked all really chic, and it had like a nice ambience, and everything above was secured, and this was a bit open. It was logistically very clever. But what I think the twist on this project was, and that's why I'm now showing it here, is that if you go in New York to the UN buildings, you see all these waving flags in front of the UN buildings. And we took this idea of the waving flags and we transformed this waving flag into a concrete element. And that concrete element we applied as a louver for the building. And then we had this story that we wrapped the whole building of the UN campus in all the flags of the world. And of course, it's a kind of a juicy story, but you saw that people were attached to it and they liked it, and they're building quite a costly building at a very prominent location, and you saw that they felt like more connected to the design as also understanding the why would you do it, factor behind it. And this was then one of the models that we made, just simply out of blue foam, where we had very elegantly here this waving flags, every other at the end. This is step one. So it's straight at the back, and then the waves in the front. And also this element was nicely settled curved. Here you see at the end we applied it every other. And also here we had like this whole technique concept behind it, which was like bomb blast and also passive energy and everything. But at the end, it was, I think, this transparent plinth with the top which felt secure but still like transparent and open, which to me was for sure the winner. So I think that I wanted to close off with this picture, and what I said, I surely wanted to present this last project very quickly. Just if I could give you would give you one advice, then I would say let's not try to make like anonymous architecture, and also I'm not prevailing here like decoration or making things like overly expensive or something, but make it somewhere, give it a human or a personal twist. And that's what we favor as an office, and that's what we hope to construct for many years. Thank you.
Haiko Meijer, thank you very much for his voice.
Thank you for inviting me, and I shall tell you a little bit about some things where we be inspired of. I can't tell you about all the stuff we are busy with, but there are some things we are inspired. And to start with, I'm thinking about the childhood. Where are you guys be inspired by? I would be inspired by the techniques. I would be inspired by your sister or your dad or whatever. Or are you inspired by the nature? It could also be a way to be inspired, to make architecture. One of the things we are walking with and we are living in is your own old history in your neighborhood. So I'm working in Groningen, and in Groningen there are a lot of farms everywhere in the world. There are a lot of farms. This farm is called I'm be inspired with is the old farms. And the old farms, we are thinking about looking to old traditions and not making old traditions again, but learning from old traditions and looking about what can we do with old traditions in a new way of living. So I'm going to talk about cubes today. I'm going to talk about stairs, and I'm going to talk about cell building. I like to build something by myself. I like to make architecture by building something by myself, or building together with other people. So in discussion about, in Holland we call it trim, but shrink, I don't know if that's the right definition, but shrink is something negative about everybody that's leaving the country and what is happening about the economy. But shrink, where something shrink, there grows something also. Because you can think about what are the things, what is growing and what instead of what are the things what are shrinking. So one of the things we find out that this a way of this definition about architecture of these old Amic farm is it is roof shrinking. Shrinking is an architectural word about how the profile is becoming bigger. So the profile, the height of the wall is here like this, and on that, and on that. So the volume is shrinking. So that's the way of making a definition. And we were finding out about what could be systems to live in or to build for yourself, what is pretty cheap to start with. And so in the neighborhood of these barns, and we were thinking, well, one of the generic elements in these barns are the cubes, are the beam structures, what is a middle, a center part, and two parts on each side of the center part. So the cube of 6 by 6 by 6 meters is a very specific cube which we are busy with. We call it now cubification. So there are a lot of things I can talk about. Starting with this volume and making it bigger like that. This is the old construction, the beam structure, and this is about, it's also 5 by 5, but there are farms who are 6 by 6, and that's the biggest way to use the wooden beams. We made the theater of it, so I'm going to talk not about one design. I'm just busy with cubes. So I was busy with cubes, I'm now busy with cubes, and about 10 years there's also the story about the cubes. And that's the same thing about building for yourself and the staircase. So making it, well, we were thinking it could be some educative learning class, or could you live in it, or making art in it, or making theater of it. So on the by the farmer we put 3 of these cubes, and together with people in the neighborhood they are making art and making theater in it, and together with the schools the students were working with it to construct it, and we were thinking, well, how can we live in it? You start somewhere, you can start in a barn. You can isolate it later and go on and on. That's the most easiest part. Or you can start in a cube. It's perfect, it's the perfect cube, and later on you're going to grow. You're going to grow with, in this case, roof forms, but you can also use cube forms to grow. So we are sketching, because I'm going to show you a lot of sketches, because I need to sketch. I need to use my body to build and to sketch. And these are way of, it looks pretty familiar in what we are used in the north, and here it's a start. And when it's on a road, it could be like this. It could be someone like this in the backyard, or trying to make it just white painted, or just natural wood, or whatever. The size of 6 by 6, it's that perfect, because you can make 2 sleeping rooms in it. You can make a start, you can live in it, you can there's a big group who can use that size. Well, of course, you can make it a little bit strange, but you can make also, like IKEA, you can make an instruction how to build your own cube. Well, the first cube was built, isolated, etc., was in Venne for artists, and we tried to figure out it's an empty space in the beginning. We tried to figure it out how to detail the glass flat with the wood. Well, it's not that high-tech, but it is a kind of low-tech, industrial, just rough way of putting the glass elements in the wood. But the rain is not coming through it, so it works very good. So this is the empty cube, and the empty cube, the size of 6 by 6 by 6, when it is empty, it's that monumental. So you have a room, a living room, but when it's 6 meters high and it's 6 meters like that, then it becomes a nice shape, a nice space. And of course, the cross is to connect walls on it or floors on it. And yeah, it's nothing, but it's also a lot of making. Is it making form or not? It's a lot making form or it's nothing. Look very familiar. It's very old cubes. It's nothing new. People did it, Campbell, but turn around, twist around, and we just look at it for again. So. Building together, the students, the theater, and this is not isolated, and the people, the students of the MTS, the middle part, not the high-tech, but the middle part of the school, they were thinking, they designed these construction. And the artist, he was also in jury. He said, well, it looks like the back side of the decoration, so that's the nicest way to have the image connected to the theater. To the potato fields is connected, and we put also the old cube, we put it on a new side, and you see it like that. It's like patchworking inside, but also patchworking, reusing the old cubes. And here it's standing next to the potato fields. So when you see this, everybody thinking, who saw it, well, what's the next project? And could it be my bed and breakfast house, or could it be my learning of my basket playing ground, part 2. So we figure it out, and we call it stay is the Gronings. Stay is instead of the stay in English. We made the English Gronings, a word from it, cube stay. And now we are developing it for houses. And on this moment, yesterday I was in Eindhoven, also in Eindhoven, in Groningen. We are developing with Trudeau and Peter Lubbers. Trudeau is a client and Peter Lubbers is landscape architect. We are trying to make Kasbah Kubus village. Somewhere in Haiko, but I'm not allowed to say where. Well, of course, cube dropping by airplane field in the north, we were studying about what can we do there in a very nice area around the fields, or making barn cities, making it for yourself, or making just art, making just figure it out. One wall is just paint and the other walls are just wood. So it is program, it's art, it's making it by yourself. I'm jamming, I'm dreaming, I'm just figuring it out, with and without a client. So that's a little bit another story about it than the story we heard earlier. But it's also a way of thinking about architecture. So of course, when we have a client, think about how we can do it, but you can also think about what could be my inspiration, or what is my inspiration, and work it out. It can float. We are now busy with floating cubes in the north. Of course, because it's shaking there. So you can imagine. The farm, the old Amt farm where I was starting with, the farmers are leaving the country, but there are new farmers coming back. That are the tiny. You get the tiny house movement, but you get also the tiny farm movement. You don't know it, but it's coming. When you want to do the things by yourself and work in your garden and live from your garden, but also say to your neighbors, you can just do something of it. Maybe can you do something else. You can make another kind of area, building that other build your house for yourself for a part, and the same with the garden and with the space between it. There are artists living next to a barn who we have made this illusion. But in Utrecht, we are working together. I show you a lot of things, not a big building finished last year, the Student Cloud in Utrecht, where we worked together with Tichelaar Makker, with the tiles. And together with Tichelaar Makker, we spoke about, well, when you have the cubes in a city area, you can make it lighter, you can make it more popular, artier. And thinking about when you want to live here, I'm thinking about my own tile. So the tile from the toilet, everybody can say, I want to have this tile, and we make a billboard tile wall. Is it a painting? Is it a wall? Is it art? Is it just, what is it? A commercial? Could it be commercial? You see it. Quadrant houses, 4 connected next to each other, instead of long rows. And it's just easy and cheap to jump in. So you have the idea, I'm living in a villa, but you are just living in a 1/4 part of it. Oops. So when we are leaving the cubes you can make with beams, and when the facades are transparent or they are veranda or whatever, you can make temporary buildings. And temporary buildings, they are connecting together, the beam structures, and you can put them somewhere else in another area, and it could be a very sustainable area to work in. And just for a couple of years. Well, the connection now comes through the experimentation part, because I was in America, in Colorado, and I was building chicken shacks with art students. And we were building together with 10 art students within 1 week chicken shack village. So there was the sun, it was early in the morning it was freezing, and in the afternoon it was about 40 degrees. So I need a hat and I had a screwdriver, and I was just photographing my own shadow. So I was dealing with the shack. But this is the shack, and it's just one picture, because what could be a shack? A shack is a shack. Chicken shack, there should be chickens in it. But there were people, they call themselves urban hands. We get the hands back in the urban surrounding. And what could be, what could it be? Is it just a shack, or is it something else? So that was nice to think about. Here is the park, there is the park, here is the park, and of course you get a sun roof. So everything is in it, but then we were thinking, what can we learn about as architect, also for me, what can I learn about when you have very less of time to build things? There is another part of aesthetics than we are learning here. So, not sawing, you can saw the things, but you can also say the materials are what they are, and we have to use them. So there are all things in length, so not made flat with a roof or whatever. So, okay. Well, building together with a lot of students everywhere in and outside of the Netherlands, and building installation with people we don't know, material we don't know, and an area we don't know. And we say to the people, well, you can draw, like design something like that in that direction. They have to work together, and then you need to learn how to use the improvisation. So how important it is to improvise and to think together, not only you, but also together, and talking together, and making together. So I bought an area in Groningen, and that's this area, a water plant treatment. And now are we going to experimentate there a lot. So this is the area. And this kind of things we are building, or this kind of things. And that's for my own tree hat about 45 years ago. This is some kind of illusion about slow development where it could look like about 20 years later. But you see here a sketch of the nature, what's around. How looks the nature? Kikkerdrill, I don't know the English word of it, but it has to do with animals, with little green animals. And what could be the size? This is wandering a little bit wandering around with a pen and paper, not with a computer. Of course, we do it also. You have just in the train or outside on the field, you have paper and you have pen, and you can wander. On my garden house, where I show later on lots of wandering and sketching about when we are connecting again the cubes. How can you live? How can you work? And how can you just relax? Working, relaxing, and living. That's also what the farmers did in their own area. So they have one house, one building, and in front it's the house, and in the back it's the working part. They don't have time to travel, the old apartments, so they have their own relax and their own neighborhood. I think there is one of the part, there are all islands now in Holland. There is the part where you have to live, there is the part where you have to work, there is the part where you can relax. But why don't we relax in our, of course you relax in your own house, but the second house is always draw another way than the first house. The second house is more informal, it's more your dream. Why don't you make your first house like a second house? Make your dream in your first house. Okay. And of course, it should be made very cheap, but very aesthetical. Of course, some way are not aesthetical, but it is part when you build everything with planks. So this is a dogma with this part. When you build everything of planks, so the furniture, and when there are other things putting on the wall, everything with planks, what could it be like? What are the relations about, and are it beam construction, or is it just the facade, or is it the wall construction? Well, when you're wondering, there's coming someone who said, I want to have a theater of it. Of course, when you're doing something, talking something, someone is coming to you and said, well, your idea about your cubes, what can we do with it? So we make theater of it, with beam structures and blinds from the barn. So this is a barn thing, but it's totally another way, put it away. So here the doors are opened, doors are closed. Oh. This is the part where the theater was in, and it's a moving theater, so you can put it within one day from the one side to the other side. And we develop this beam structure because it's hollow. It's not massive wood, but it's hollow. We make it hollow. And so we work together with the carpenter on different projects. So this is one of the projects the carpenter built for us, the same carpenter. And you see also other projects what we built. So these are the two of the 6 different areas where the cube is in. So the cube could be in a city area, or it could be in a landscape area, it could be in a forest area, it could be everywhere, of course. And yeah, in a way, 2012, 3 years ago, we made a cube fires, cube paper. Well, there are all things said in it. But one of the things is we made in Tilburg, we made, within these fires, we made not a tree hut, but a hut tree. They asked me, as artists, not as architects, but they asked me, can you make, under the railway area, can you make an artist, can you make art? And I said, well, I have an idea to make this one. Can I find a tree somewhere around there? But the tree wasn't there. So I turned it around. Because of course there were a lot of rails and there were no trees. So I was saying I have to make an area where you think about a tree within these steel area. So this is a Japanese tree, a little one, they're very expensive. People in it, and it's very big hut with a very tiny tree. There it is. And here are the builders. One handsome guy on the left side and Freddie. And my carpenter, Freddie, I'm working with these kind of experiments. So we have just, for 3 days, we have these planks, and then it should be used for other building experiments. And it's very important to do this, because we have now developed a high-five house. And a high-five house is a house that you can build in 5 weeks. When you are a handsome guy or girl, and you are working together with a carpenter, you can build your own house in 5 weeks. So let's have a vacation for 5 weeks. Of course, it's a tiny house. It's 6 meters. I can't imagine something else anymore. But you can do it, and we are starting also with that kind of experimentation to do it together with media. Okay, here you see the little tree in it. Je kan ze echt doen. I don't know the English word. And here you see the aesthetical part of building aesthetics, but also the aesthetics of course the rails are very horizontal. It was a good foundation of the project. Stand there for 3 days. And yes, thinking, wondering, thinking, wondering, thinking, wondering, thinking, wondering. It looks like a quick, so that. But how could you build? You can make it by a big builder. You can do it by a series, or you can do it by your own, or you can make the parts of it and build parts of it. Together with Peter Lubbers, we are thinking about green buildings and how to connect the green building with cubes. And these are some illustrations about the Casbah cube way of living. But it's not only for the people who are entering here Holland for the first time, it is also for startups, for flexible or working area. Hello. I'm not that fast with computer programming, but I'm fast with Sketch. 2 minutes and this sketch is ready. Next sketch, etc. So you have next to your computer, it's very good. What you can do, where you are, with your hand or with your mind, try to use it in a good way. So this is another study. We made it also next to a farm, a barn house here, and the cube is the empty space. So this is the cube together with the roof in an ending phase. But the ending phase, we made it now by someone who wants to live in next to the lake. So this we can now use the developing of the cube by, you can just start with this one, but we have already built, after 1 year, we already have built the cube with the roof. So we are trying to practice the different directions together next to each other. And this is the loft area under the roof. Okay, that was the cube thing. The cube thing is a little bit changing because it enters a stair and a staircase, stair house. This is a table. It's 75 centimeters high, more or less. It's interesting. It's a table. Is this space? When I was a child, it was space, but I don't know. Come here, come. Okay. Also nothing. Dog. But putting on each other 4 of the tables, it's 3 meters. Well, I was thinking about maybe I can make a house from that. So it's leveled. It's the different levels from 2 floors are connected with each other. It's 75 centimeters. So then this is the interior. And I made it together with the client who likes something what he saw, but something I have to show you someday. But he makes a concrete concrete table, but also together with plywood interior. And plywood interior, I said you have to use just one material for your whole interior, one material, and you can make everything of it. So I was sketching 2 years in front of that for another villa and dealing with the split level. What is split level? How can I use it? How can I integrate it? It is a kind of wondering. This house never been there. It's not there, but I have finished it in another house. I have made it in another house, and now I'm busy with my own house. It's also on this way. So, sketching, making grounds, making, is it 2 meters, is it 2 meters 30, is it, well, I'm now busy with 3 meters 40 height. With all these kind of sketches, you need it a lot, more and more. And this is the scheme. It's a quadrant, 4 floors. When you have 4 floors, then there's, in this case, it's 3 meters 40. In the stair house in Almelo, it's 3 meters. This was the big villa I was going about. This is the villa. It's not built. It's just in my office on a plank. It's next. It's related to dunes. In an area where are dunes, you're just walking on a higher level and then on a lower level. And we were thinking about that could be also a nice way to walk in your own house. How can you landscape your own interior? So, without the sketches, I tried to figure it out with someone in my office to make some nice computer illustrations. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. So it's a way of abstract painting, abstract way of designing and thinking about what is the smart part of it. There are lots of smart parts, but one of the things is when here is a window and the floor is going down, then when here is coming light in it, the light is also on a lower part in your house, it's there. And when the sun is shining in the morning in that direction and you are in that area on the other side of the house, it's indirect. The sun is coming into your interiors. Also, you're not on that kind of the side. Well, these are all. But this is the entrance. At the entrance, there's a working space, and the working space is working on the table, and the table is the entrance level. So this is the entrance level. To the right, you're going to the kitchen, and this is the working area. And this is just 75 centimeters lower than. Of course, we've got eating area, the kitchen. And so, what was a very main part was from building it, what is the size of these, and how can you build it, and how can we connect it, and what is almost the Escheriaanse way of form contra form, upside down. And of course, I made a lot of sketches like this, talking about a building and making it very flat. And it's a cheap house. It's a really cheap house. And you see these kind of spaces, you're thinking, wow, it should be very expensive, but it's not. It's 7 by 9 meters, it's 150 square meters, and it costs 150,000 euro. Is it cheap or is it expensive? Cheap? It's cheap. Of course, there's a way of, okay, well, the material, the plywood, it comes, this is with wood, so it has their own expression. What do you do with the own expression? So we deal a little bit with the walls outside. We made it white painted, like this, and the other floors, and the inner walls, we made it just like the materials it is. So these are white painted, but you see it's plywood, and just the inside is plywood with glue on it. And here you see where the structure inside comes into the structure outside. And is it the window, is it the structure, the construction? Is it theater? Are you living here, or are you making your own theater for someone else who's walking with his dog and looking to you? Alright. The people who live here, why is it like this? The first question I asked to these people was, it was an empty area, and they have their own garden, but they could show it, you could see to the area around. And I asked them, would you live on the ground, or would you live somewhere in the air? They said, we want to live everywhere. We want to live on the ground, but also in the air. So that was the point. I said, we have to make something climbing, something, but it's not only the floor, it's not only on the ground floor. Well, I'm just inspired and dreaming and wondering about my own big building. Was not there at this time, but at the Tower of Babylon, but then another time. Just wondering. Of my new house, together with CPO construction. Well, I'm just somewhere 2/3 on that process. The last project, or I don't know how many time I have, the last project is the building by myself, but also the tiny house, what is they call it now everywhere like this. But my garden house, my popular garden house. This was the house we just bought in the inner city. It's garden for 200 square meters, and you're just living in the inner city in a garden full with coniferen like this. And what can we do with this? So making a 36 meters house, just make it very personal. 36 meters house in an area. When you are a student and you start your life after with your career. Oh my God. When you start with your career. Okay, career. I have to start with my own career. So, when you start your career, why are you living next to another one or above another one? You can live in the green. You can live. When you have a space. You used to be having a space like 20 square meters. Well, 36 square meters is a lot more. And then you're living in a green area. So I was saying, by this garden house, this could be a starting up house. In Holland, there's enough space in Holland. There are people who are thinking another way, but I think there is a lot of space. And how can you make the dream come true and living in your own house from 50,000 euro? Of course, when I had this point, there was 15 years with my career Bionics, and 15 years I was working together with 25 people on the end of this 50 years. And I was never drawing anymore, not these kind of drawings, technical. So with this garden house, I want to do everything by myself again. Because this garden house was just entering again on the ground. And it was very good, just building it together with the carpenter and also drawing everything technical, what has to be done. Just a way of technical paintings. This is the heart of it, from concrete, and the rest of everything is wood. So everything you need is in it, and I'm going to show you. This was my own project. Having 2 weeks, my holiday, not 5 weeks. Having just short holidays. Sorry, 2 weeks. I have to build this concrete kitchen, but also chimney. then we just leave it like this. But there has to be a fire in it, so you have to finish it. I put the old tiles in the garden, I put it on the ground, on the clay, and a wooden structure in the foundation, making all different type of woods, what connect something ventilated, another kind of wood, not ventilated. I've not that much time, so I don't go to talk about that. But building it for your own, and building it together with the carpenter for your own, of course I have to use the show it with all kind of glasses. And together with Freddy, we are just finding out what's concrete is really going to do, how heavy it is, and we are making these kind of things, and you see that thing, when there is a time later on I'm going to tell you about that. This is very nice, and making architecture for yourself, you're finding out, and you're using it for other projects. So that is doing things by yourself. No one is asking it for it, but you're just doing it. And finding it out. What is it? Is it the furniture? Is it art? Is it architecture? Is it landscape art? What is it? Is it farm? So it would be a rough kind of things. And of course, I said it is, and we designed the wooden bridge in Snake, and we know the new techniques and the newest techniques of Akoya hout wood, and we know that the industry are that close to use poplar wood and acetylating it, modification. Then the poplar wood, you can put it in the ground and it's never damaging again. So it's a very nice way of cheap wood, never damaging again. But that was then. Now I know more, and it's not happening. But other kind of woods, it's because you know of Amsterdam, there are a lot of wooden elements in the ground. There are new techniques coming by, and we can use them. So I would say you can use Dutch wood, very ecological, sustainable, with unsustainable concrete in the middle. Sorry, but I just like to use a little bit of concrete. Making fire, you cannot make until you cannot make a fire in a wooden structure. The wood structure is here, but you need this kind of structure. We were thinking about all kind of furniture, IKEA, etc. And then the house was finished. We said, well, I'm not allowed to put some furniture like that in it. And there was one old chair by the old woman who lived in front of us. And we used the old chair, and we just bought other old reed chairs to connect with this one. And it's just an open structure, that's good. And of course, I don't like kitchen furniture or kitchens, but this is part of the architecture. And now in our new house for ourselves, my wife loves to cook here, and she loves to work here, and she loves to work on a concrete table. Well, you love it. I love it too, so we have to do it. And this is the white color of poplar wood, and poplar is using by for pellets, of course, in the Dutch industry, and poplar using for the wooden shoes, and poplar we are using for plywood. And plywood is just like this color, but the poplar, what is modified, it is brown. It's all poplar. There are people who know very lot about wood, and they are entering my house. They say, what is this kind of wood? What is this for a kind of wood? I don't know. Is it Western cedar? What is it? There are no nuts in it. I said, no. when they're leaving. I said, it's just proper. So it's very nice, and it's brown inside, but when there is coming sun on it, it's becoming gray on the outside. There are a lot of clients who want to have in their own house this concrete. And of course you are allowed to make all the 10 centimeters for the whole wall. So I saw it by the balconies, where you put some isolation in it and using less concrete than it looks like. And of course everyone can come to me and eat pancakes in my popular house, looking to the beautiful conical green structure. Oh, this is the wood chair from the old lady. This is it. So there are some also in this house. The main chair, it's this chair from the old lady who once lived there, and there is a front part and a back part. And in this kind of areas, when you are sitting on the front, everyone is waving hi. And when you don't want to be there, you're going backwards and hemlock. So this, I think, this was the end for what I was thinking. There is one little. Is there a time? Do I have a little bit of time? Oh, okay, it was a little project, but you have also a little project on the end. There is a nice area in North, and they were asking for a volley. And one of the artists, together with the Nederland Tweaken and VLV, to think about a volley. And one of the things in the romantic area are, nou weet ik het Engels woord even niet, poetsen. What? A carriage. Okay. There are beautiful old carriages. And there are beautiful new horses. And one time in a year, they're coming out from everywhere around. And I was thinking, there's a carriage, no carrier, but a carriage. That was the only other word I have to remember. Carriage, it should look like, this one is not ended, but it should look like a black carriage entering somewhere, waving in the area under the trees. And I began, of course, with sketches. What it was the time. I like what is in the train. The two. Yeah, you're sitting, and then someone else, your neighbor is coming, and you're talking to. It's very kosher. It's very intimate. That's nice. That's architecture, but we don't experience it anymore. It's just a train. But how can we experience it by a volley? So we can make it here. And of course, it was the carriage from the old days. They were sitting next to each other like that. They were talking, of course. And I was making here a theater from the carriage. So I'm sketching, of course, I'm sketching. And this is the theater, one actor. Here, someone making music, of course, not a sax. Guitar. And of course, this is what I like about. This is what I mean. Oh, this is a little bit old. And well, the burnt wood. We were now for 2 years ago till now we are in a burnt wood phase. So somewhere around from your 15 years till 85, we're in different phases. And when you are in a phase, it's also nice to work it out, of course. And that's the thing I was starting with, is where do you find your inspiration? Well, burning wood and just nature wood. So, and this is a burning, you're laughing, Giacometti. Of course. Well, finished, and of course I couldn't make wheels under it, so I just put the wheels away from it. This is the burning part and the not burning part, and they're building and burning and building and burning and building and burning. And this is my proud carpenter again. And well, in the last 5 pictures, it's like, it's almost finished. It's just a little house, tiny house, burnt, nature. And it's very intimate, isn't it?
Before I will ask you to ask your questions, we'll go into the audience with the microphone, of course, because otherwise it's not really possible to hear it. I would like to kick off to ask you, Caro, to ask you a question. Maybe it comes a bit out of the blue now because we had another story, but I will. What struck me into your work is that the whole materiality and the making of, it's also the subject of the lecture series, but that the making is very much guiding the way you perceive architecture and the way you work on it. And is it maybe also a kind of legitimation of how you design that the structure, the materials, the ornamentation, that's forming also the basis of your concept? So that's also the way around, that it's not that you fill in a materialization after the concept is being developed, but that the materialization is forming your concept.
Yes, I hope that's correct. At least, yeah, that's our, let's say, the design intention is about how we work. It's also a bit the way how we educated, I would say, after leaving this university. For me, the benefit of working in these big offices was always that the design process in these offices is always with an integrated team. So it's never that well, first of all, you have indeed also these moments indeed that you sit in the train and you're thinking with your sketchbook, but the way of working in the office is always with engineers from different backgrounds, from acoustic to structural background, but also specific materiality backgrounds at Herzog de Merol, a lot of sustainability backgrounds at Foster. So you always have these large tables where people are sitting with different views from different backgrounds that having their opinion on the design. So therefore, it's already in the very beginning of the project that you have all these ingredients, and you start to mix and mix it in your head, and then that steers indeed at the end the concept.
And when something is, for example, not possible, would that change your design? For example, structurally, if you explain the structure, for example, of the tower, is that then intrinsically changing the basis of the design?
Well, I think, the first thing is always that, the first thing they always say, yeah, it's possible, and then the second time they come back and they say, like, yeah, well, actually, it's not possible. And for example, with the tower, I think all of you could understand that first it was really bending, and that let's say it was really bending like that, and that there was no support whatsoever. And then we started thinking like, okay, yeah, it's not a headquarters of Shell, so somehow we have to prop it. And then the W of Wijnhaven came under it, and then like the first letter of my surname, and then all kind of things we started thinking, and at the end we came to a solution which indeed is then the resultants of like an architectural aim we have, the possibilities that there are structural, and at the end the thickness of the wallet of the investor. So the result is not A or B, it's always the resultants then of this mixing of the different disciplines. And but I mean it's the same also with the climate facade that we thought like, yeah,
30 centimeters above the floor is really ridiculous. And then for 4 weeks they looked at me like, yeah, well, it's not possible. And then at the end, like asking them again and again and again to calculate it, and then they were surprised themselves that they could lower it by more than 20
An architect
centimeters.
must be a burden to.
You have to really push them to the edges of their imagination, I would say, in order to come with at the end a bit of a creative design.
I have a question to you, Haiko. That it seems that the proposals that you made are going over a very long time. It's a process of years. Your concept has been developing slowly, becoming more complicated or different, or time seems to be a very big issue. Temporality, the buildings which are being demolished after a short time, or time in the sense of being able to build it within 5 weeks, or also when you see certain materializations that do they resist in time? Is time in that sense a part of the concept of your designs?
Sorry. I shall say, because I can ask you something. Yes? But I ask you something, for instance. I ask you something. You have 1 second to answer. And within that 1 second, you know, you have to use all your experience you have in your life in that 1 second. But when I ask you for 10 minutes, I'm coming back, you need that kind of time to have an answer. I can say you can use for 10 days. That's the practice. Sometimes there is a journalist. What is your opinion about? You have to answer directly. Sometimes there is a client who says, wow, well, I want to have a house within 1 month. Can you do it? Well, 1 month, totally engineer. This is very fast. Of course, it could be. It is another house than a house for within 3 months. But when you experience all the things you are busy with, but when you have that kind of experience with your fascination, you can use your fascination very directly.
But the very big part of your work is also the craftsmanship.
Yes.
The repetition.
Yes.
Being able to repeat and
Yes.
But does it have to change then? Do your designs have to change, or could you also repeat in a certain way the designs of 10 years? Is architecture repeatable in that sense?
Yes, you can, for opposite, you can look for music. When you have music, you have to use structure. There's structure, and that makes music and sounds. But then there is a dissonance. That's happening something. It could be interesting. Oh, you're saying, it's not good. And everyone's hearing it's not good. When you can jam and improvise, so you have to use your craftsmanship, but you have to be open for the improvisation. So you have to do both kind of. I like that view.
I would like to see in the audience if there are questions. So maybe somebody can go also with the microphone. Are there questions?
I have a question for Caro, because in the first project you explained that you first had the facade design with the concrete with print, but then you said it's too expensive and we have to do something else, but then you put like a lot of effort and a lot of time in finding. Is it worth it that you take that long time and that long part of the design process to find another solution which may be a bit cheaper, or can you say afterwards maybe it was also a good choice to do the original design?
Funny question. Yeah, but I mean, in terms of time, the problem is still that that architecture is in some ways it's subjective judgment. When is something finished, and that's where we walk up again and again every time. So indeed, we spend a lot of time working on our designs. And it's not I don't want to think in like the hourly rates what it is then effectively, because that wouldn't make me happy. But what does make me happy is that I think with spending so much time on it and turning it over again, we now came to a solution which is this what we now developing here has never been applied before. And I think we all very proud, like us, the engineers, and also the concrete manufacturer once it's there. So in that sense, I do think it's very worth it if at the end you can make truly original things. It's not proven yet, but I trust it to do itself.
Thank you.
Are there more questions?
Thank you. I have questions to Haiko. When we talk about inspiration, for example, with Caro, we saw that she worked at Vos and Hertog de Merlin, and she just said that in some aspects she took inspiration from there. When I listened to you, I hear you talk about inspiration from childhood, from nature, the example that you gave with the table. Is it something that you force yourself to look at those examples that are very close to you, that are near to you, or do you also get your inspiration from other people when you're designing?
I've got inspiration of a lot of things. It could be sailing on the lake, but we have a video on our site, and it's called Building Space. And building space are all pictures put together, put next to each other, and that's a space between two pictures. When I'm entering the building space, literally, the practice, in my head everything is going between the project, it's not finished, it's just there or there, and I'm just thinking about where could it be, what could it be, but not with that kind of notice. And when I'm there by the building, or so where they are building, it's also the same. It's not ended. It's not ended. It's just there, and I'm seeing that I'm inspired, just floating in from a question somewhere else. Okay, I want to do it like that or whatever. So it could be in nature. It could be within a discussion about the human part of dealing and. Or whatever. We have why we are talking about the people only who are entering the Netherlands. Why we don't have to speak about all the houses, the older problem, and trying to get some anger sometimes, and also from that anger have to figure it out something new or something. Or you can have proudness, but the farmers are proud that there are such nice things. And why don't we use them anymore? Okay, that's the reason why we don't use it. But when there is something, we can say, hey, we can use it now. Called sandstaining, that's a heavy product. But that product, when the product came out, the wooden structure was gone. So the reason why there is, of course, the sandstone, there's an old tradition, there was a lot of wood. When there came called sandstone, then there is the houtskelettbouw, it was removed. And now there's time again for using CO2 to discuss or whatever. There is coming a new time to use wood again. That's a long answer.
Thank you.
I can shout.
You can stop, that's fine.
It's a very naive question, maybe banal, but what is
feel the space. Yeah? Maybe I can make 10 other answers, but feel the space. I think that's smell the space, hear the space, feel the people, hear the people, not feel the light.
So we are getting to very deep questions now. No, maybe you can also ask Caro the same question because I'm very curious.
Well, now, well, for me, architecture is also really the switch between the scales, and that's what I find very special on it. That on one moment, indeed, I mean, if you talk about feeling, on one moment you're thinking about what do you feel if you touch the facade, and on the other moment you think like, what if you feel if you enter the space, and then the other moment you think like, yeah, what if you feel if you pass the building, and how would the city feel if you add like this museum or this public building to it? So it plays on so many different scales and on so many different sensitiveness levels. And I think that for and at the end for me it's like the architecture is much about creating an emotion, and I think that's how you express it as feeling. It's that at the end it does something to you, and that's where I ended my lecture with, like, make sure that you add something personal in it. Or my response to the first question is like, yeah, I'm happy with it, because at the end we are able to make like truly originals in a time when there's so much speed in the world of data and information and duplication and feeding information from one phone to the other phone to the other phone. So yeah, for me it's about emotion on different scales and creating this something which is distinct from the other.
I have maybe another relating to this, because yeah, you kind of did it the other way around. You started immediately very international, very big projects, etc. And that most of us start our careers with small, and then gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and you started immediately with huge projects. When you, a lot of these projects come into being through competitions, and that's something that you also notified. And within the competition phase, very much the whole making and thinking about materiality and stuff like that is not really possible, because you have to put down a concept, and which you then later, when you win, you have to elaborate it. So is it also a chance when budget costs, cuts, etc., is it also a chance to re-elaborate a quick concept that you had made, maybe in a competition, but that you want to rethink, where very often there's no time for anymore, because you have to stick to your concept?
So you mean that in a competition phase, because time is so limited, that at a certain moment, let's say in week 3 you stick to a concept, and in week 4 you can't change it anymore because in week 5 you have to deliver? Or?
Well, it's a kind of a pressure cooker. I always say that a pressure cooker, because in a competition phase, in 4 or 5 weeks or maybe 2 months or something, very short time, you have to deliver a design. And then later, the design is in its layout, it's fixed. So then in your elaboration you will find out other things, and things will change, etc. But the concept has to be made in a very short time, without there being any, how you call it, maybe dialogue with the client, and all kind of things that in a other process will highly be of influence on your design.
Yeah, that's correct, but for us, it's also, if I look back and review, let's say, our successful projects, then we always won those projects because they were more elaborate than, let's say, the ones of our colleagues, of our concurrents, so to say. So, and I think that is also a bit in the time of this more difficult economical times. The crux also of this competition was to create a level of confidence to your client, and for us to create a level of confidence is what to give a certain level of elaboration in the project. But to answer also to your question, I think that the crux of winning these things is if you have a concept which in some way ticks this, what I earlier talked about, this emotion box of this client also, and that the client has a certain reference to it, but at the same time it has a certain level of adaptiveness. Indeed, that you can also elaborate it and change it and made it more custom to the brief which will come to you during the phases of VO and DO. But maybe that's also, if we look also a bit in let's say, in the change of our profession over the past years, then I would say, and how we were able in 5 years to come where we are now, is indeed to, in this time of this pressure cooker, to just work harder, faster, and more than the rest.
Sleepless nights, let's put it that way.
I have another. When you are young, you could have been friends because you are not experienced. It could be your friends. So you are thinking you another way. On the other side, when you are when you are older and you have a lot of experience more, then you could have a lot of friends of your experience. And how we deal with the openness, how we deal with that kind of experience about improvisation. So when you have 5 minutes to talk about concept, let's talk about concept A, B, and C. You have to jam with them. And then say, well, this concept is the best part of it, and we are going further. But it's, there's not one way of making a successful architecture.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there more questions?
I have a question for Haiko. In your presentation, you namely talk about small projects and your role in it as you working with your hands and with the carpenter. But how do you adapt that role in a bigger project like the tower?
Yeah. I'm glad with the question because in a bigger project there is bigness and there is also timeliness. So for our project for 655 students in the tower in Utrecht, we are building a wall with 250,000 tiles. You can think about the whole building and you can think about one tile. You can say every student is someone else, and you can say every tile is someone else, something else. So it was the first glass experience for us. So glass roof, glass, clay. Yeah. But it was a tile put in the fabric. It's 10 times, one tile, 10 times on wood with 2 hands, 10 times. And although it's an industrial product, but it's only thinking about the tile. When I'm thinking about the cloud, the student cloud, that's the whole building. And the tiles with the shininess have something to do with water. So the material, there's one tile, it's very expressive, and it's only one tile, it's that tile. It's every time you should bake it, it's another form. So it's tiny and it's big, connected together. You don't think about what you will do with the facade, what you will do with the facade. Well, it's city planning, it's landscape, it's light. So I can say a lot more about that project, but is that enough for you?
Okay, last question, yes?
That's for Caro. Because in the facades you design all these symbolisms from the flag and the rivers, but why don't you do that with the form of the building? Because you only use square forms and cubes, kind of.
I found our tower very elegant actually.
Yeah, in the tower there wasn't the symbolism of something, and then you had the flags with the UN, maybe I didn't recognize it, but you had the flag of the UN in the building in Bonn and the rivers in the building in Utrecht. But the shapes were quite simple of those buildings, the forms.
Yeah, well, it was, to be honest, it was just a bit the theme of the lecture, the story I wanted to tell today. No, we also, in the form of our building, we do actually this.
And also dome, it's like this.
Yeah, so I mean, what I said, the tower was kind of a link to the neighbor, to create space to the neighbor. One of our realized projects, the one that actually had mentioned in the beginning, is a project in Bordeaux, which is actually only about the volumetric shape. It was it's a silhouette of a harbor building, which is mirrored on the other side, and by that you create a very expressive form. Also, the building, which was at the beginning, the collection building for Boijmans van Beuningen.
Why not with those two buildings?
Sorry?
Why not those two buildings? Why were they square with symbolism in the facade?
Well, actually, I mean, the building for the faculty of Utrecht, what I said, it's a renewal. So the square was already there, and it had a bite out of it. So what we did is to create a perfect square, and the building of the UN campus is actually not a square, it's a parallelogram, which is like a deformed square in order to optimize the views to the river. Next time when the lecture has a different theme, I will come more about the volume of the buildings.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody.